The orange trees had been blooming since April, but Iris only smelled them now, at 10 o'clock on a Thursday night, with a needle between her teeth and someone else's flamenco skirt in her hands. She had not planned to be backstage. She had planned, as she always planned, to stand at the edge of things, a cold drink, comfortable shoes, a clear line of sight to the exit. Seville's Feria de Noche lasted until sunrise, and Iris had already located the nearest taxi rank, the fastest route back to her rental flat, and the approximate hour at which the crowd would thin enough to walk through it without touching anyone. She had 4 nights left in the city before the flight to her next contract. 4 nights was plenty. Then the woman with the tear in her skirt had grabbed her arm. The backstage area was a narrow corridor, bricked in white plaster, half lit by bare bulbs and tangled with extension cords, racks of spotted fabric, and the noise of 12 dancers warming up in a space built for 6. Iris had diagnosed the costume damage in 3 seconds, a seam split at the hip, 6 inches, clean. She'd asked for a needle and black thread, the same way she asked for a blood pressure cuff. Nobody questioned competence delivered in that tone. She was halfway through the repair when she became aware that someone was watching her. He was leaning against the opposite wall with his arms folded, not because he was hostile, but because the corridor left him no other option. Dark shirt, collar open, the kind of easy stillness that meant he was used to waiting in noisy places. His face was handsome in a way that seemed almost accidental, as if he hadn't arranged it on purpose. He was watching her hands.
"You sew like a surgeon,"
He said. Iris bit the thread clean.
I am one, more or less.
He raised an eyebrow. Not impressed exactly. Interested in the distinction.
"Diego."
He said, pushing off the wall and offering a hand.
Iris.
His grip was warm and firm, and brief. A hand that knew what it was doing.
"Are you with the production?"
I'm with no one.
Iris said, then heard how that sounded.
I mean, I'm alone, traveling. I was standing near the right door at the wrong time.
"Right time."
He corrected, gesturing at the dancer now shaking out her repaired skirt with visible relief. Diego was the lead instructor for the troupe, which Iris deduced before he told her, because the other dancers watched him the way good nurses watch an attending, peripheral attention, constant calibration. He moved through the corridor, touching shoulders, adjusting a wrist angle, saying something low to the guitarist that made the man laugh and tune a string. He carried authority the way some people carry grief, which is to say it was always present and he almost never mentioned it. He came back to her when the troupe was 3 minutes from stage.
Stay and watch from the wings. The view is better than the crowd.
I don't want to be in the way.
You fixed the skirt. You're staff now.
She should have gone back to the edge of things. She stayed. Flamenco at close range was not what Iris had expected. She had expected display. What she got instead was argument, rhythmic, precise, and furious. The dancers in constant conversation with each other and the guitar and the floor. The audience beyond the lights dissolved into a sound, and the sound was appetite. She felt it in her sternum. Diego stood beside her in the wings, arms still folded, watching his dancers with an expression she recognized, professional pride with something private underneath it. She'd worn that face herself, in a dozen hospitals on a dozen night shifts, being good at a thing she had chosen in order not to think about other things.
You don't perform with them.
She said quietly.
Tonight, I direct. Last month, I performed. It rotates.
Which do you prefer?
He was quiet long enough that she thought he might not answer.
Performing. But my father thinks directing is more serious, more respectable, so I direct more than I should.
He said it without complaint. That was what made her pay attention, not the content but the flatness of it, the way a person describes weather they've stopped arguing with.
That sounds exhausting.
"It sounds like family."
He said, and cut a brief, honest look sideways at her.
Do you have a festival dress under the nurse exterior, or is that just...
Linen trousers and good shoes.
She said. It's a very deliberate look.
It says, I'm here, but I'm ready to leave.
She felt the accuracy of that land somewhere behind her ribs. She didn't confirm it.
It says, comfortable footwear is a priority.
He smiled then, not the easy public smile she suspected he kept ready for general use, but something smaller and more real. And then the dancers swept off stage into the wings in a heat of color and breath, and someone shoved a prop basket at Diego, and the moment dissolved into noise. 40 minutes later, the main performance over and the stage given back to the festival band, Diego found her at the edge of the courtyard behind the venue where the crowd had thinned to couples and stray children chasing each other between paper lanterns. The air smelled of orange blossom and cold beer and something faintly smoky, like the city itself was exhaling after a long-held breath.
You didn't leave.
I was about to.
I know. I could see you deciding.
Iris looked at him sharply. He held her gaze without apology. He was right, and that was irritating, and she felt the familiar instinct to summarize the evening pleasantly and find a taxi.
One dance.
He said,
Not performance, just for practice. I'll teach you something easy.
I don't dance.
You sew under pressure in a crowded corridor.
You can learn one step.
The festival band had moved into something slower, a guitarist and a fiddle, the kind of music that did not ask permission. Diego stepped close and offered his hand. Not the handshake grip from before. This was an offer, flat-palmed, patient. She took it. He put her right hand on his shoulder, took her left hand in his, settled his free hand just above her hip, not possessive, but precise, the way a good instructor touches, with purpose and no ambiguity. He showed her the weight shift first, slow, then again, then the turn, which was nothing, barely half a rotation.
You're anticipating.
He said,
Don't lead. Trust the weight.
Anticipating is how I survive hospitals.
You're not in a hospital.
The crowd was watching them, the particular sidelong attention of festival people who have drunk enough to find strangers charming. Iris felt the attention and instinctively started to straighten, to make it more presentable, to perform adequacy. Diego stopped moving. He didn't drop her hand. He just went still, the way the corridor had gone still when the music started from the stage. Then he said, very quietly, so only she could hear it over the guitar.
This isn't for them.
It was such a small sentence. It rearranged something. Iris looked at him, really looked, past the easy competence of his body and the obvious advantage of his face, at the man who directed more than he performed, and said so without bitterness, who moved through a noisy world with all that controlled stillness. He was not performing for her. He was just standing there in orange blossom air, asking her to be in the same place he was. She let the weight shift. She stopped anticipating. They danced twice through the slow song, and then the band stopped for a break, and the courtyard filled with talking. Diego led her to a narrow spot against the tiled wall where the crowd hadn't reached, stone still warm from the day's sun, a lantern throwing amber light across the white plaster. She could hear a guitar somewhere further into the city, private and unhurried.
You're very good at that.
She said.
Teaching or dancing?
Making people forget they're in public?
He considered this. He accepted it as a real observation rather than deflecting it as a compliment, which raised him several degrees in her estimation.
You keep telling me when you're planning to leave.
He said,
The taxi rang. The exit. I was ready to leave. You do it like a reflex.
I'm always leaving.
she said.
That's the job. 3 months somewhere and then the next contract. It's what I chose.
Do you like it?
She opened her mouth to say yes and stopped. The honest answer was more complicated. She liked competence, liked being needed and effective, liked the clean slate of each new city. She was less sure she liked the part where every good evening had an advance expiration she'd set herself.
Usually.
I perform less than I want to.
Because staying in one place feels like surrender.
Diego said.
You leave before anything can ask you to stay. We're both very talented at protecting ourselves from things we actually want.
The orange trees along the courtyard wall breathed out something sweet. Somewhere in the narrow streets behind the venue, a drum had started again.
That's a very large thing to say to someone you met over a broken seam.
Iris said.
You repaired it in 4 minutes. I had time to think.
She laughed, properly, surprised by it. He looked pleased, not triumphant. There was a difference. He was standing close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his shirt where the stage lights had warmed it. She thought about the morning. She thought about the flight date saved in her phone's calendar, the specific hotel she had booked, the new city waiting with its new hospital and its clean slate. She thought about how the clean slate was starting to feel less like freedom and more like a room she kept repainting rather than moving into. Diego was watching her do all of this in her face. He did not press. He waited, the way he had waited with his hand offered flat-palmed in the lantern light, patient with the shape of her hesitation.
I have 4 nights left.
She said.
4 is enough.
For what?
Breakfast. And another lesson, one that's not for the audience.
The guitar from somewhere in the city kept moving through its private song. The lanterns above the courtyard swayed in the warm air. Iris looked at the drum and blossom dark and felt the preemptive exit dissolve before she'd made a single choice. Except she had made one. She just hadn't named it yet.
What time?
She said. He smiled, the real one, and the orange trees above them did what orange trees do on warm Seville nights, which is keep blooming, indifferent to anyone's careful plans.